20 years old. Top 30 in the world. The pride of 113 million people. And Nike just cut her loose like she never existed. But here's what nobody expected. Alex Eala didn't cry. She didn't beg. She didn't post an emotional apology. She picked up the phone, called her lawyers, and handed them a number. $500 million. And now the entire tennis world is holding its breath wondering how one phone call, just one, brought down the most powerful sportswear brand on the planet. Stay with me, because what I'm about to walk you through isn't just a sports story. It's a story about power, fear, and what happens when the wrong person decides not to stay quiet. Let's go back to the beginning because you need to understand who Alex actually is before any of this makes sense. She wasn't handed anything. Born in Quezon City, Philippines on May 23, 2005, Alex grew up in a household built on discipline. Her mother was a competitive swimmer who won bronze at the 1985 Southeast Asian Games. Her father ran his life with the precision of a boardroom. Between those two forces, Alex was shaped into something rare, an athlete who combined fire with focus. Globe Telecom spotted her magnetism before she'd even turned 10 years old and signed her as a brand ambassador. Think about that for a second. She hadn't even fully committed to a sport yet. Brands were already circling. By 2022, she walked into the US Open Junior competition and walked out as champion, the first Filipino in history to win a Grand Slam junior title. An entire country erupted. And Nike? Nike was watching very closely. Because here's what you need to understand about Nike: they don't just sign athletes. They sign symbols. They sign stories. They sign the kind of human beings whose journeys reach people who've never watched a single match in their lives. And Alex Eala was exactly that. She represented authenticity, she represented Southeast Asia, and she represented a narrative so compelling it practically wrote itself. So Nike signed her. They put her in their shoes, their apparel, their campaigns. And then in August 2025, they released something that genuinely shocked the industry, a limited edition collection inspired directly by Alex's Filipino heritage, featuring the Sagittaria, the national flower of the Philippines, layered across imagery of Wimbledon's iconic grass courts. The collection was designed by Filipino visual artist Georgina Camus, and it wasn't just merchandise. It was a declaration. Nike was publicly saying that this young woman from Quezon City belonged in the same conversation as the greatest athletes alive. February 2026 made that statement even louder. Alex flew to Oregon. She walked through the famous tunnel at Nike World Headquarters, the corridor where portraits of the greatest athletes in history line the walls like something sacred. And right there, hanging among legends, was her own portrait. 4 words printed beneath it. History in full bloom. She posed with a peace sign, posted the photo, and within hours it had traveled through millions of feeds across the globe. Sky Sports presenter Gigi Salmon called her potentially the single most commercially attractive sponsorship asset in global women's tennis, saying she surpassed even Aryna Sabalenka and Coco Gauff in raw commercial magnetism. Let that sink in. At that moment, standing inside those headquarters, wearing that swoosh, Alex Eala was everything Nike claims to represent. So how do you go from your portrait on the wall of Nike headquarters to receiving a termination letter with no phone call, no meeting, no explanation? Here's where things get dark. And I need you to pay close attention here, because this is the part that changes everything. Behind those celebrations, behind the Sagittaria collection and those smiling photos in Oregon, a completely separate conversation had been happening. According to the lawsuit Alex's legal team filed, Nike had approached her representatives late in 2025 with an upgraded contract proposal. Not just a renewal, a transformation. The new deal would have positioned Alex not as a sponsored player, but as a cornerstone ambassador. A face of Nike's entire Asia-Pacific expansion strategy. The financial figures being discussed were substantial. The creative control being offered was unprecedented for any player sitting outside the world's top 20. Nike's own internal projections, referenced in the legal filing, reportedly forecast that Alex's marketability would rival Naomi Osaka within 3 years. 3 years. From Alex's perspective, this wasn't just a bigger check. This was confirmation. Proof that her rise wasn't temporary, that she wasn't a story that would fade after one good tournament. For a Filipino athlete to hold that position inside a company that practically defines sporting greatness, that meant everything. Her team moved forward. Preliminary terms were agreed on verbally. Documents were prepared. Everything pointed toward an announcement that would have made headlines from Manila to Madrid. And then, nothing. Nike's communications started slowing down. Meetings were rescheduled. Calls went in circles without resolution. The lawsuit later described this period as a deliberate stall, a calculated delay while forces outside the room applied pressure that Nike apparently chose not to resist. Alex's representatives kept reaching out, kept asking for clarity. Every time, they got vague reassurances and nothing more. No transparency. Just this slowly suffocating feeling that something had shifted, that decisions affecting her entire future were being made somewhere she hadn't been invited. And then came the letter. No press conference. No call from a senior executive. No acknowledgement of the portrait still hanging in that Oregon tunnel. Just a formal legal letter, cold and impersonal, informing her team that Nike was exercising a termination provision and would not be moving forward with the upgraded deal. The language cited strategic realignment and evolving portfolio priorities. Corporate filler. The kind of language specifically designed to communicate a decision while revealing absolutely nothing about where it actually came from. So what actually happened? Here's the allegation that shook the entire tennis world. According to Alex's legal filing, officials connected to the Women's Tennis Association, acting either directly or through intermediaries aligned with established player camps, contacted Nike and applied deliberate pressure to kill the upgraded endorsement deal. The lawsuit frames this as tortious interference, a legal concept describing situations where a third party intentionally destroys a business relationship between two other parties without any legitimate justification. Now, why would anyone within women's professional tennis want Alex's Nike deal destroyed? Think about what happened at the 2025 Miami Open. Alex walked in ranked 140th in the world, a wild card entrant. She eliminated Yelena Ostapenko. She defeated Madison Keys. And then she stepped onto the court against Iga Swiatek, a five-time Grand Slam champion, a player whose presence alone had dismantled countless opponents before a ball was even struck, and Alex won. The reaction in certain circles wasn't admiration. According to sources cited in the lawsuit, it was alarm. Because Alex wasn't just a talented 20-year-old having an extraordinary run. She was a demographic earthquake. Millions of Southeast Asian fans who had casually followed tennis before suddenly became obsessive. Television ratings in the Philippines shattered records. Sponsors across Asia began asking specifically about Alex, not about the established stars, not about the players who'd held the top spots for years. About her. And in a sport where sponsorship budgets are finite, where established players and their management teams depend on those same commercial relationships, that kind of gravitational shift creates fear. The filing doesn't name specific individuals. It references entities connected to WTA governance structures and representatives acting on behalf of established tour interests. But what it describes is a coordinated effort to communicate to Nike that continued investment in Alex's elevated contract would be viewed unfavorably, and that certain tournament scheduling preferences and organizational relationships could be affected as a result. Whether those communications were explicit threats or carefully worded implications, Alex's attorneys argue it doesn't matter. The outcome was identical. Nike, one of the most powerful companies on the planet, apparently blinked. The WTA denied everything. Their representatives called the allegations entirely without foundation. Nike maintained that all partnership decisions are made purely on commercial grounds, independent of any external pressure. But Alex's legal team had something neither of them expected. Documentation, emails, reportedly recorded calls, internal correspondence that allegedly traces a direct chain between WTA-connected figures and Nike decision-makers during the exact window when the upgraded contract went quiet. If those documents say what Alex's lawyers claim they say, no amount of corporate vocabulary about strategic realignment survives what comes next. Discovery. Nike retained high-profile legal representation within days of the filing. So did the WTA. Organizations that are genuinely unconcerned about a lawsuit's merits don't mobilize at that speed. The tennis world fractured almost immediately. Established players maintained careful silence or released statements so measured they said nothing at all. Younger athletes, particularly those from Asian and developing nation backgrounds, were far less restrained. Fan communities in the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, and South Korea organized coordinated campaigns targeting Nike's Asian market presence. Not symbolic gestures. Real financial pressure on a market that Nike cannot afford to lose. Legal scholars who reviewed the public filings noted that tortious interference claims are difficult to win. You have to prove the interference was intentional, not merely inconvenient, and unjustified by any competing legitimate interest. But several of those same scholars acknowledged that if the documentary evidence is as strong as Alex's team suggests, if those communications actually exist and say what the filing implies, the legal landscape shifts completely. Meanwhile, Alex kept playing. She kept winning. She represented her country with the same fearless intensity that had carried her from Manila to the quarterfinals of WTA 1000 events. She didn't post emotional statements. She didn't beg for public sympathy. She authorized her legal team to build a case and then walked back onto the court like she had something to prove. Because she did. $500 million. Filed. Delivered. The filing breaks the damages into 3 layers. Lost endorsement income across the projected contract period, lost secondary commercial opportunities that an elevated Nike deal would have unlocked, quantifiable damage to her personal brand equity, and punitive damages reflecting the allegedly deliberate, coordinated nature of what happened. 3 primary legal claims sit at the center of the case. Tortious interference with prospective economic advantage. Breach of contract, arguing the termination itself was executed through improper external pressure, making it unlawful. And civil conspiracy, the most ambitious claim of all, alleging that Nike and undisclosed parties within the WTA ecosystem coordinated to achieve an outcome that neither could have accomplished independently without legal exposure. Win or lose, something has already changed. This lawsuit isn't just asking whether Alex Eala was wronged. It's asking whether the commercial infrastructure of professional tennis permits powerful institutional actors to function as invisible gatekeepers, silently deciding who ascends and who gets quietly redirected, regardless of what the scoreboard demands. That question has never been placed under federal scrutiny before. It is now. One portrait, one letter, one 20-year-old from the Philippines who decided that disappearing quietly wasn't something she was willing to do. And here's the question I want to leave you with, because I genuinely want to know what you think. Was this the moment Alex Eala changed professional tennis forever? Or are we only seeing the opening move of something that runs far deeper than one lawsuit? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this story did what I think it did to you, if it made you angry, if it made you curious, if it made you proud, then you already know this is exactly the channel you've been looking for.